And welcome into the Week 6 roster show. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and Frankie Santiago, bringing you guys all of the goings-on in football from the Week 6 matchups. And boy, were they a lot of them. We're going over some of our favorite trade for and trade away players in the Week 6 run of things, as well as the guys that you should be adding onto your squad from the waiver wire this week.
Get them while they're hot.
Yes, the waiver wire does dry up sooner
Yeah.
rather than later, typically. So if you haven't started spending your fab bucks, you're going to want, especially with this week, this is probably one of the better weeks we've had for waivers so far this season. So
For all
definitely some guys out there that you're going to want to be adding to your squad. Let's jump into the news before we break down the trade targets and the waiver show. Starting it off with the Kansas City Chiefs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was ruled out of Sunday night's game with a knee injury. Turns out he had a MCL sprain, I believe, and is expected to miss a few weeks. Looked like a pretty nasty injury. So I mean, at least from the eyeball test, watching it happen, I'm expecting this to be on the longer side of recovery than the shorter side, and I'm just happy it's not an ACL. You guys in that sort of same camp?
Oh yeah, that one was a tough one to see, especially for a player that we were hoping to finally see some breakout with. But yeah, if he's out there, you got to go get Darrel because, I mean, it's hard to get a better running back better running back in a better situation, I guess, the way I'm trying to put this. But
there's not many running backs in the NFL that are more talented than Darrel Williams.
Watch, he's just the RB1 at the end of the season. Like, who saw that coming?
But yeah,
Joe Burrow was taken to the hospital after their game with a possible throat contusion. Sounds like he's supposed to play this week, but
yeah, he was.
Keep an eye on practice reports.
Yeah, he got checked out. I guess it wasn't as serious as they had thought it was going to be, and he's again hoping to be throwing this week. Practice should go on as normal. Again, another near scare for everyone.
All right, bear with me up for this next entry here because we're going to be talking about basically the whole team. The New York Giants, this past Sunday, had everyone get injured. Saquon Barkley was ruled out after suffering a badly rolled ankle. Like I was telling Frankie about it when we had a chance to discuss it at post game. It was like that ankle went 90 degrees. Like that, it looked rough. Fortunately, it's not even considered a high ankle sprain. It's just a badly rolled ankle, but a low ankle sprain. So it should be at least on the shorter side of injury recovery, probably 2 to 4 weeks. He is currently characterized as week to week. Daniel Jones was carted off after deciding that he was going to play football like it was 1982. And just charged headfirst into the end zone, did not succeed. Obviously could pass concussion protocol. The actual act of getting concussed doesn't, how violent it was doesn't always guarantee that it's a bad concussion. So if he plays this weekend, I feel better about the Giants' options that are out there, but that remains to be seen if he can clear protocol. Kenny Golladay had a knee injury. I believe it was a knee hyperextension and is expected to miss some time. And Kadarius Toney, while he wasn't actually injured, apparently had precautionary X-rays post-game and was disqualified from the game for throwing a punch at Devontae Casey in the fourth quarter. Fortunately, he's not being suspended. That was reported today that the NFL is not considering suspending him and is likely just going to evaluate him for a fine. No major injuries on the Cleveland Browns or the Chicago Bears. I know Justin Fields got banged up. It'll be interesting to see if he can get out there this week. I haven't seen anything as to the severity of his injury.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything pop up either.
But I'm guessing if no one's reported that he's gonna be missing time, that he'll probably be good to go this week. But we will have to. We'll have to see if he can get back out on the field. If not, it's Andy Dalton time again, I guess. Sorry.
Yep.
Arizona Cardinals, Max Williams suffered a pretty ugly looking knee injury and is likely done for the year. Taysom Hill was ruled out against Washington with a concussion. Deontay Johnson also pulled a hamstring. They're both going to the Saints are obviously going into a bye week, so they're both going to be fine for week 7 most likely. Juju Smith-Schuster is done for the year with a shoulder injury. Washington football team, Curtis Samuel was ruled out with a groin. He should be. You guys, so let's talk about Curtis Samuel real fast. Seems we're talking about guys we should be adding later. He should be dropped, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's had this groin all off season. He's took 3 weeks off, still has it.
Yeah, we haven't even got to see what he's going to be like in this system yet, and I fear that with the injury he's been plagued with to this point, it might just be something where he's getting off to too slow of a start, and we're not even guaranteed that he's going to get enough production to be fantasy relevant. We're just going off a name at this point, so I think he needs to be let go at this point and reevaluated later.
Fair enough. Detroit Lions, Quintez Cephas suffered a shoulder injury against the Vikings, was not able to rejoin the contest. Miami Dolphins, no major injury news, but I guess on returning injury news, Tua Tagovailoa is potentially expected to make his return to football this week. Could be a nice little boost for the offense that has struggled without Tua. Jacksonville Jaguars thankfully made it through the week without any major injuries, at least to their fantasy relevant players, although their center was carted off the field with a knee injury. So that offensive line's getting a little bit worse.
Yeah, they're.
We're gonna talk about this later as well for one of our defensive streaming picks. But if it seemed like Trevor Lawrence was running for his life before, it's not getting better.
They are 0-20 since that Gardner Minshew speech tweet, by the way.
Yeah. Patriots running back Damian Harris exited with a ribs injury early against the Texans. He came back in, exited again with a chest injury. It was reported after the game that the injury is a non-factor and he's going to be good to go. So this might have just been, Bill taking him in and out of the game and making him sort of learn to not fumble. We know Bill is a old school head coach in that way. So.
Yeah, you guys played a real close game with Davis Mills.
Hey, the point is we won. So
yeah, it's all experience.
Yeah. I think that's all the injury news that I had to mention. Is there anything you guys want to bring up that I did not directly mention here?
I think we got all the important stuff.
Yeah.
RIP the Giants and their fantasy value as long as half of their team is out. But
surprisingly, John Ross is still healthy for them.
Hey,
I think this is the longest he's ever lasted into a season.
And he caught another touchdown. He's looking good.
Yeah, he's breaking next week. All right. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the trade fours and tradeaways. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
So our first trade target for week 6 is one Michael Thomas. It might seem odd that we're recommending you to trade for a guy who hasn't played any football yet and is also on a bye still. But this is probably your last opportunity to trade for Michael Thomas because fantasy managers that drafted him have been waiting for some time for him to return. So, with it being on the eve of his return, he's obviously eligible to return after this week. Why don't you guys run me through what you're thinking here? Are you trading for Michael Thomas or are you leaving him on the team he's on?
I mean, I think this is the best time to target him. If somebody spent a high enough pick on him, maybe you drafted earlier in the season, so you weren't understanding exactly how long he might be out, and he was someone spent a 4th, 5th round pick on him. I know he was one of our favorite targets because he was going in like the late 3rd, early 4th. But that was before we knew how long he was going to be out. After that, he was more of a 7th round pick. I mean, even then, somebody could be hurting because they didn't draft in a way to plan for taking Michael Thomas, as we were talking about. So Michael Thomas is on the eve of coming back. So he's going into a bye. If you can target a manager that is rostering him and is in need of a wide receiver to plug in for this upcoming bye week, maybe they're also catching somebody else in that bye week that they need to play. They're shallow at other positions. Like, this is the time to go out to that guy and say, hey, I see you got this guy. Let me go ahead and give you, somebody you just picked up off the waiver wire, somebody who you're just ready to sell at this point, and get Michael Thomas on your team because he could be a league winner for some people with just the pure talent and the lack of targets on that team. Like that team needs an alpha receiver.
They need an alpha receiver, kid.
I am in the same boat, and there is a reason, and that is a very good point, Vitali, that we were telling you to go and get this guy in the middle rounds for a reason, because he can be a top 5 wide receiver once he comes back. It's not even a question. He's got the talent. He's going to be the focal point of that offense when he comes back, and this is the cheapest you're going to get him because he's not helping anybody's team if he's not scoring points this week. So another good point that he brought up is we're hitting bye weeks. Someone might be, again, they might have not drafted for like the bye week. I mean, I'm personally, I don't pay attention to that too much. I'll just take the loss where I need to. But other people do panic and they see, okay, Michael Thomas is getting me points, but also these other 2 receivers aren't getting me points. So
yeah, I think the Falcons are going on a bye. Maybe you have Calvin Ridley coming off your starting lineup, and you don't have space to put him on your bench.
Yeah, and then also, again, this person could be in a, they could be 2-2. Well, I guess not now because it's week 6, but they could be 2-3. They could be 1-4, and they need a win. And if they need a win and they have Michael Thomas, who's not going to get them points this week, you may be able to approach them with and be like, hey, I mean, I have receivers that can get you points. I have just players in general that can get you points because they're not on a bye, and you need a win here. So let's see if we can work something out.
What are you guys offering for Michael Thomas right now? You don't have to give me specifics if you don't have players in mind, but what range of player are you sending for Michael Thomas that you expect to get a deal done with?
High-end
no, go ahead.
High-end wide receiver 2. The wide receiver 1 would depend on who it is and what the situation that they're in. But I think actually one of the candidates we're going to talk about in this show is somebody I would be comfortable, depending on my depth, giving up for him.
Vitali?
Fair. So with this one, I am targeting a guy that I feel like has value that I want to get off my team. So someone we've already talked about before, Bears receiver Allen Robinson. He still has a lot of value. People are still kind of hyped on him because of the fact that they had, Dalton was out at quarterback and the things were looking up for him. He should be getting back in there. But if you weren't able to sell him yet, he didn't really perform this week. But if you can be like, oh, I'll give you a guy who's playing at least for this guy, I think that's a trade I would try and make right now because I think you're going to win that hands down as soon as Thomas is back. And if the quicker you can get away from the Bears, I feel like that's the better. All the better.
I will add one other reason why I think Michael Thomas is a smash trade for right now is because his next just 7 matchups are great. After the bye, he's eligible to come back in week 7 against Seattle. Then he gets Tampa Bay. Then he gets Atlanta, Tennessee, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Dallas. That is a murderer's row of bad defenses and shootouts. So I think he's a smash trade for right now. If you can get your hands on him. Let's talk about a trade away now. We'll pivot to another wide receiver here, and honestly, a guy that would probably be a decent target to throw at Michael Thomas if you were lucky enough to draft this fellow in the 5th or 6th round. Jamar Chase has currently been performing very well for the Bengals through 5 weeks of football. Obviously a highly drafted rookie. Everyone had high expectations for this kid coming into the year. He's teaming back up with Joe Burrow. Storyline. And he's done well for fantasy managers so far. But if you look at how he's actually getting his points, he's getting them on long bomb touchdowns. And when T. Higgins has been fully on the field, for the most part, T. Higgins has been more of the volume guy than Chase has been. Obviously this week not including, but this was Higgins' first week back. I'll give a little leeway there.
Yeah,
Higgins is a guy that's primed for regression, but he's scoring high right now. Are you guys trading or not Higgins? Chase, with the regression being something that could easily come and just smack Chase managers in the face. Are you guys dumping him for maybe a low end or underperforming wide receiver 1, or are you holding on to him? Do you expect this performance to continue?
I'm getting off this ship immediately. He is, as you were talking about, he is very much overperforming. The last 2 weeks definitely put some blinders on for their managers, just because you look at the targets he was getting, 9, 10 targets. His snap percentage has been up there, but you look at the first 3 weeks, you look at his targets, 7, 4, 5. That's not elite numbers, and he's putting up elite production. So if you can get somebody who's a very much a scoreboard, like they don't watch the games that much, they don't really dial into the news to get a recap, they don't look at the highlights, they just see what did he do at the end of the day. That's exactly what Jamar Chase is, and that's a great guy to get off your team now. Go find yourself. I would say go and get yourself a middling wide receiver one. Like go sell this guy to a guy who needs like a Calvin Ridley. Honestly, like we said, trade him away, but like if you can get Calvin Ridley for cheap, I probably would still buy in on that one. But I think I honestly I would go to the moon with this one. I would take Jamar Chase. I would take a running back that you're willing to sell or something like that, or just maybe a tight end or someone. Package him with something and go shoot and see what you can get back for this guy because he is scoring so many points, and it's very easy to see him slip from where he is.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as far as I think he is a nice tertiary piece to, package with somebody to try and, upgrade yourself to one of those top tier players at a position. And obviously, he kind of reminds us of the old Mike Williams because Mike Williams now is actually doing things. He's only hit double digit targets once, and that was this week. And again, T. Higgins is just coming back, and I agree with what you said, Ian, that T. Higgins is just going to be the guy who's going to be kind of, again, to compare to the Chargers, the Keenan Allen of this team. He's going to be the guy who's going to be coming across the middle of the field, and he's going to be the volume guy. But Jamar Chase he's purely, for me, an upside player. Like, cool, you get a long bomb touchdown on 5 targets for 80 to 120 yards. That's good, but that's probably not going to happen every week. And I mean, I brought this up in the Michael Thomas take. If I can get 1 for 1 right now, if I have the depth for it, Jamar Chase for Michael Thomas, I'll eat the bye week and I'll take the floor that I'm going to get with Michael Thomas or a player like Michael Thomas rather than, have to worry about, oh, is Jamar Chase going to keep this up? Is he going to, have that long bomb touchdown, or is he just going to have a 10-point week?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't even really think about that one. I think that is a great target right there, flip Chase for Thomas, and I honestly think, especially if that manager's hurting, you can do Thomas plus because of how good he's playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, back to the trade fours. We are going to the Washington football team here to target one Terry McLaurin, who, while he's not a buy low per se, Terry has been performing very well for fantasy managers, including having 2 performances that are good enough to be considered week winners, or at least, very tough performances to overcome if you were against him for those. Terry's been in a fairly tumultuous season, though, so far. Losing his quarterback, getting a new one, offensive pieces coming in and out of the offense. And obviously he's in a decently tough conference. So the teams that he's going to have to play haven't been, aren't always the easiest. Despite that, he has been performing at a high level. He's been playing a lot of his team snaps, and he's looked very good while he has been on the field. Are you guys willing to pay market price to get Terry McLaurin, because you're probably not getting him at a depressed value, but are you willing to pay market price to get Terry McLaurin to gain access to his fairly favorable schedule coming up? Kansas City, Green Bay, Denver you can at least throw against, gets his bye week, and then after the bye he's got Tampa Bay, Seattle, he gets Dallas, Philadelphia, and then Dallas again in the fantasy championships. Or if you go to week 17 now, because of the longer schedule, his fantasy championships are Philadelphia, Dallas, Philadelphia. But anyway you spin it, he has a fairly good schedule for the rest of the season. Are you guys willing to maybe pay market or overpay a little bit to get Terry on your squad and target those matchups? Or are you just kind of sticking with what you got and think it's not worth it to upgrade?
So here's the thing for me. If because I really like Terry. I really think that especially with the Curtis Samuel news that he was coming back and now he's injured again, I like it even more. You mentioned his schedule. His schedule is phenomenal. I would say he probably has one of the best wide receiver schedules remaining that I've seen, especially for the fantasy championship. He was already a high volume, high snap count guy, having almost 100% snap count just in general, not just for a game. He's getting the double digit targets with Heineke. Heineke is while coming in, we weren't sure what we were going to get, but he's shown that he can be a competent quarterback and he can, run this offense. And the fact that Curtis Samuel is not going to be there, for we don't know how long, it makes it even more appealing to me that, I will pay I'm not going to overpay drastically, but if I can, pay a receiver, that's comparable to, what I think I'm going to get with Terry, I will take Terry over that receiver because, again, everyone's situation is a little bit different, but I think that Terry's worth it because he's just such a good buy right now based on the situation that he's in and what he has shown throughout the year.
Yeah.
So would you? I was asked this question to you two before. Seems you've already talked to him as a trade away. Jamar Chase for Terry McLaurin.
Yep, 100%.
Oh yeah, I would 100% send him away. But as the Terry manager, to be fair, I would probably be asked it would have to be Chase plus, and I would expect that for most leagues. You need to pay just Chase is becoming a name, but Terry is a more established name. No, but I like this one because I think this has highlighted something that I feel like some fantasy managers get a little bit too wrapped up in when they're trading is they need to win the trade. They need to be getting the buy low that's going to bounce back. Well, when we're looking at people we want to buy low, there's people who are just underperforming and we're fading away. And ideally, we're trying to give advice towards players that are doing poorly for a reason that should change. There's an injury, there's a coaching change, something that could improve. Whereas if we see a stagnant system, like when we talked about Allen Robinson, it's a stagnant system. Quarterbacks are hurt. It's just something where we don't see that changing that much, so we want to get away from him. Terry is a guy who I think you can go up to that manager and say, listen, he's a great player. I want to get him on my squad to help me win future weeks. And you can even pitch it to him. When you look at his points, like I said, if you have another guy who's just all about the points, what did he do? What did he do? He's only had 2 good games in that manager's eyes. He's only cracked double-digit points twice, and they were big games, but it's only twice. So if he only has 2 wins because of Terry, he might look at Terry, but he's my best receiver, and he's only getting 8 points a game, and he's getting shut down by good defenses. He might just be frustrated. So I would sell it as hey man, let me take this guy. I'm going to give you legit pieces back, because I think it's going to win me in the long term. So don't always target players just because you're like, oh, I want to win. I want to get the low guy. I want to pay less. That's a good way to win, but you're not always going to find that.
Sure. Jumping to the last guy on our list here, we are going back to another trade away. We are looking at Mr. Kyle Pitts, who's coming off of a career game against the New York Jets. So that's honestly a reason right there. Going into a bye week, and he is on the putrid Atlanta Falcons. This is a man who, while he is, admittedly, he just had a very good game and he is receiving a decent target share in his offense, is still the number 2 in his offense. He is still a rookie tight end, and he hasn't looked great prior to this just absolute unloading against the New York Jets. Now, going into a bye week where he's going to score you 0 points, and the Atlanta Falcons have the 26th worst schedule for tight ends over the rest of the fantasy season, including games. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me just double check to make sure I'm. It's mainly double check to make sure I'm correct there. Perfect. There we go. Not 26th worst, but still bottom third. They have a bottom third schedule against tight ends for the rest of the fantasy season, including negative or I would say down matchups through all of the fantasy playoffs and getting the Buffalo Bills in the fantasy championships. Yeah, he didn't have much shine other than his name before this week. Now he actually has a monster performance to go with it. Are you guys shotgunning him to a tight end needy manager? Maybe someone had George Kittle and they're kind of underwater right now because they're unable to get him on the field. Or do you guys believe this is the start of the Kyle Pitts breakout and you're holding him?
I'm just going to just jump right in there because before I forget that point, I am shopping him basically to someone who really needs a tight end, and I'm going to shop him like, listen, tight end, rookies take a little bit to kick off sometimes, especially rookie tight ends. Kyle Pitts just had a big game. Granted, it was against the Jets, but I mean, he was drafted 4th overall for a reason. I think that the talent is there. I don't think Kyle Pitts is a watch. I think it's kind of, the factor of, there was so much expectation with him and, the offensive situation that he's in. But I think that he has upside there. I'm not confident in the upside for me, but if they want to be confident in it, I will try and get as much as I can for Kyle Pitts because I am out on this boat. I think that this is his all-time value that we've seen him have. He might have better games. He's probably going to have worse games.
Yeah. I agree with all those. Like I said, I would sell him on the targets, but I'm selling him to anybody, maybe somebody who's over streaming tight ends, whoever has just the worst tight end out there. I'm just going to them, hey, do you want to stop streaming and you could just start this guy every week? Because it's an easy sell for a tight end who's getting as many targets as he is. He's just not doing anything with them, and I want to get away from this Falcons team as fast as possible. So I'll take almost anything to get him off my team.
Okay, that was a fast one. Let's wrap up the trade segment there. If you have any specific trade questions, as always, you can ask those to us down in the comments section below or on Twitter. You can reach us at the Fantasy 4-Pack, at Fantasy4P_Ian, at the Spoon, and at Senpai Koala. We'd love to answer any trade questions or lineup questions you might have. And if you haven't already subscribed to us, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, so that way you know whenever our new content drops.
Feel free to DM any screenshots of lineups or anything too, or just add us. I mean, I'm answering questions pretty much every Sunday in my DMs from needy people, but I appreciate all of you. I did tell somebody to start Swift this week, and it worked out. So
bold, telling someone to start one of the best running backs in football.
Well, their team is also just loaded, if you remember.
Yeah, and do remember we're coming up to bye week, so your quarterbacks are going to be on byes. Always good to look forward and see what that bye week is. If you can scoop up a quarterback that's got a great play now, and before people even start looking at that bye, it's a great way to do it.
Yes,
sure. All right, let's jump into the waiver section of this show because, man, were there a lot of injuries. So, as always, we're going to run down our list of guys that we think are good waiver targets here, rounded out with some streaming defenses that you should be looking into for this week. Leading off with the quarterback position, we have Carson Wentz at 22% rostered, Taylor Heineke at 26% rostered, and then more of a speculative ad because we don't know for sure if he's going to be back yet this week, but if he is, he's got a great matchup. Tua Tagovailoa at 24.7% rostered. Which, if any of these guys, are you guys prioritizing, and how much fab are you looking to spend on them?
My favorite one for the week is Carson Wentz. We just saw that he had to throw quite a bit to stay in the game and ultimately lost to Baltimore. And he's got Houston. Houston was able to at least put up points against the Patriots, who are quite a good defense. And the Colts D hasn't looked that great just yet. I think Houston can put up enough points that Wentz is going to have to throw, and he is very anti-turnover. You'd like to see a little more in the touchdown side, but he's not going to hurt you as far as turnovers. So for him, I'm going depending on my quarterback needs, what I'm looking at. He also has a game against San Fran right after that, so if you're trying to roll him into a second week, he's not a bad play for week 7 as well. I'd probably throw 10%. Like I said, I stay low when I'm going streamers, but I'd throw I'd say 8 to 12% would be my range.
Depending on how bad you need the quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not off Wentz, but I like Heineke a little bit more here because we've seen this KC defense now get lit up by, granted it was the Bills, but next week Washington football team is going to be in town. They're not a terrible defense. They're a good defense, and it's going to be a lot harder for KC to put up points on them than the Bills, and they could barely do that. Heineke is a guy where I get the turnovers. People might say that was a problem, but I mean, he's had 20+ point weeks 3 out of the last 4 weeks. Granted, this game was against New Orleans, but their defense is starting to look a little bit better than it was. If you just go back, I mean, the Giants, Buffalo, Atlanta, he's had a touchdown in every game. Multiple touchdowns in every game. And, we initially didn't think Heineke was going to be, that great, but he's a nice middle-of-the-road quarterback right now. He's playing above what I think most people expected him to do, and he can get it done on the ground, too.
Okay. Running back is going to be a hot spot this week for people, with two fairly high-profile backs going down in Saquon Barkley and CEH. Darrel Williams and Devontae Booker are their direct backups from what we've seen. Darrel Williams is 7.5% rostered, and Devontae Booker is 3.8%. Obviously, these are both going to be top waiver ads of the week. You probably can't get both of them. So which one of these two guys are you guys prioritizing, and why?
This one's very easy for me. It's Darrel Williams. Kansas City's just a better team, more scoring opportunities. They have shown to just want to use one back, whereas with Devontae Booker, the number one thing that scares me off of him is we don't know yet the timetable for Saquon, and it could be a little, could be a lot. But the next 2 weeks for the Giants are the Rams, followed by Carolina, who are pretty staunch defenses. I could see them just bottling up this, this Giants team and just not leaving much room for Booker to work. Whereas Williams, you always have to respect their passing options, so he should always have room to run.
That's actually a very good point, too, and the reason why that I like Williams better than Booker. Let me just say this. I don't not like Booker because of Booker. I don't like Booker because of the situation he's in. He's taking over for, probably one of the most talented running backs in football on a team that just lost their starting quarterback. Maybe it's for the week, maybe it's not at all, but he's banged up going in. Their receiving core is diminished, so the passing isn't going to be, what it needs to be for, I think, a guy like Booker to, really thrive. Williams, on the other hand, he's going into, again, an offense that's been, struggling a little bit, but they're still the Chiefs, and they can still put up 30 points in a minute's notice. So you have to respect everybody who's catching the ball out there just because of who's throwing the football. And, just based on, the type of running back he is, too, I think that we kind of saw CEH, getting a little bit more work. They're showing that they want to use their running back a little bit more this season. And I think he's just in a better situation than Booker, so I feel more confident throwing my fab money at him.
Okay. Wide receiver, we have a couple good options this week. Kadarius Toney obviously had a show-out week, almost hit 200 yards, probably would have if he didn't get ejected. Mecole Hardman had a decent week, and Tyreek Hill did get a little banged up with a knee injury, not anything serious, but still might be worth a speculative ad for Mecole. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to probably move into a more prominent role in the offense with the Quintez Cephas injury. And then, of course, Tim Patrick just showing up on a week-to-week basis because that's what Tim Patrick does. What are you guys looking at here with the wide receiver position?
So we were talking about this one who we liked more just overall, but Kadarius Toney, he has to be added. He should be, like, his rostership should just skyrocket to the moon with how good he was, because this could be the guy that just breaks out and has a Justin Jefferson-esque season, and you can't just leave that out there just because he's a wide receiver and he's playing for the Giants. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings weren't much, especially passing-wise, and we saw what they were doing. The Giants are going to be behind. They're going to need to throw. Kadarius Toney was coming down with a lot of contested catches against great coverage. He was looking like an elite receiver out there. We've seen before rookie receivers, if they're gonna break out in their year one, it takes them a couple of weeks, and then they start going, and they usually have a great end of season. So that's why Jamar Chase is such an anomaly. Kadarius Toney is the easiest number one for the receiver, and when we're looking at who you take over, it's where you're looking. Are you hurting and you need running backs? Go with one of the running backs. Are you in the driver's seat in your league? Are you up and you don't need the running backs because you drafted deep? Go for wide receiver, but Kadarius Toney, you could really make an argument for either of these guys to go, Darrel or Kadarius.
Yeah, for me, Kadarius Toney, again, is a must-add. You probably should have added him last week once all of the Giants' receiving options went down. That's just me, though. But yeah, just based on the game he had, and I mean, yeah, people think about the Giants as, the shitty Giants, but I mean, Danny Dimes has been playing great this year as far as fantasy goes. I mean, he's been throwing the ball a lot, and with nobody else really there. I mean, Galladay's banged up now too. We don't know if we're getting Slayton and Shepard back next week. I mean, Toney might just be the only guy in town, and he's proved that he can carry a game. Again, to what you just said too. If I don't need the running backs at all, I'm going after Toney. Probably throwing not a ton, but I would probably say if I'm in the driver's seat and I have the fab, 25%.
Yeah, that was going to be my target number. 25%, I think, is a great spot where, especially if you're doing well, it doesn't overextend you too much. But I could, if you want to say you're going 30, I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and shift over to tight end here, where we have Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, and Wiley Cox as our 3 ads this week. Hunter Henry seems to be settling into the tight end 1 role for New England. Obviously, we thought it was going to be Jonnu on this show. It ends up being Hunter. Little disappointing there, but at least one of them is beginning to show out. The tight end being such of a wasteland that it is. Hunter is at least at the top of our list. Zach Ertz and Wiley Cox, generally more of just a speculative strength of schedule ad. They both have favorable schedules for tight ends coming up, and Zach Ertz has been getting quite a bit of targets. Is there anyone amongst them that you guys wanted to make any specific points for, or do we want to just talk about defenses and round the show out?
No, I think that for me anyways, the last 2 are kind of going to be like, if you're hurting at tight end and you're really just chasing points at that point. They both have really good schedules, so it's kind of just, if you're hurting there and you don't have one of those locked in guys and you need the touchdown upside, I'll throw a couple bucks at either of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The points you're making there. Nothing further to add.
Okay. And then for defenses, we've got 3 streaming defense options for you guys this week. The Broncos defense are getting the newly head coachless Las Vegas Raiders. Actually, wasn't we forgot to mention during the news segment, but John Gruden did obviously resign as head coach of the Raiders during Monday Night Football. So
Really
that is going to be an interesting matchup for the Broncos, who are not a bad defense in their own right, and now get to play a team that is just changing over their leadership. The Packers are going to visit the Chicago Bears, who have just been kind of a dumpster fire all year, even without Jair Alexander. Strong option. And then the Dolphins get the Jaguars in London.
T-Town.
Oh, yeah.
What are you guys thinking with these defenses? Which one are you guys going after if you aren't just starting a defense that's a premier matchup or an every week starter? Who are you chasing?
I'll take Miami and London. They just got beat up, and they want to show that they can still be a good defense. There's not really. I mean, we talked about this a little bit too. Trevor Lawrence's center's out, so they're going to be getting to the quarterback a little bit more. Probably they're probably going to be putting him on his ass a lot. So you're gonna get those sack points. You're probably going to get a couple of pick points. Miami's no stranger to pick sixing, so they're my top ad for the week. Especially since they're going to be highly dropped because of what Tampa just did to them.
Yes. So I do like Miami. They're probably lower on my list. They're probably my 3rd ad just because they are traveling all the way over to London. I could just see it's a long way to go. Defense is an entire unit that has to play every down. They can't really take downs off, otherwise you're opening up a hole in your defense. And I could just see something where their rest is not quite there. They just got pummeled by Tampa. This could just be a game where they do okay and they get out with the win. But the traveling, the new location, and all that stuff could just add up to not quite what you're expecting with the Dolphins. So for me, it's the Packers in a rivalry game against the banged up and wretched Bears.
Okay. I think for me, I would take the Broncos out of these 3 if they're available. I really like that defense this season, and if I get a chance to send the Broncos after potentially Derek Carless and John Grudenless Raiders, that could equal a lot of fantasy points.
Do we know who the backup is in Las Vegas?
I actually don't. Not off the top of my head, at least. Let me look that up real fast.
Yeah, I'm actually curious.
Las
myself.
Vegas.
Nathan Peterman.
Oh my God! Yes, Bob talks about this all the time.
Peterman's still in the league?
I mean, it
Good
might
for
end up
him.
being. I think it's Marcus Mariota, but as the depth chart is constituted, Nathan Peterman is listed as the QB2.
Well, no, Mariota is on IR currently.
True.
Yes,
I
yes.
don't have his IR status here, so the QB3 would then be Kyle Slaughter.
Okay, so yeah, Broncos. I'm sticking with Broncos.
You know what? I'm going to change my answer to the Broncos as well.
All right, well, that'll do it for us for this waiver show. Like I said, if you have any questions regarding specific players or specific trades, make sure to reach out to us on Twitter. That is the best spot to contact us with any questions, issues, comments, concerns that you might have. I think that's all for us. So hope you guys all get the players that you're searching for on waivers this week, except for you, Garrett.